4 bodies, face down, barefoot, silent. Behind the Golden Key Motel, a swamp of secrets buried the lives of women no one protected. But one of them had a story no one expected. She was the smartest girl in the room, a sure jeopardy. Winner, they said. But her body was found face down in a ditch, barefoot, behind a seedy motel on the outskirts of Atlantic City. How does someone fall that far? And who wanted her dead? Barbara Breidor wasn't just another face in a forgotten case file. She was once a promising student, a daughter from a well-to-do family, sharp-witted and full of potential. Her teachers remembered her intellect. Her sisters recalled her quick comebacks and encyclopedic memory. She could answer every question before Alex Trebek even finished asking it. That's who she was. But in November of 2006, Barbara's name would appear in a very different kind of headline. She was the third of 4 women discovered in a shallow, watery ditch behind the Golden Key Motel. All 4 bodies were arranged in a haunting pattern, fully clothed but barefoot, lying face down, heads turned in the same direction. They had been there for days, some for weeks. To the public, it was a chilling mystery. To Barbara's family, it was a devastating confirmation. The girl who once lit up every room had vanished years earlier into a haze of addiction, arrests, and survival on the streets. Now she had become part of an unsolved murder case, one that still haunts the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office. Barbara's story isn't just about how she died. It's about how a gifted young woman was slowly swallowed by addiction. It's about the people she loved, the choices she made, and the system that failed her. This isn't just a crime story. It's a warning, a tragedy. And it begins with a question no one has yet answered. Who killed Barbara Breidor and why? It began in silence. A stretch of land behind a small roadside motel, muddy, damp, and forgotten. What looked like an ordinary drainage ditch on the edge of the Black Horse Pike hid something no one expected to find. On November 20th, 2006, 2 women were walking along the dirt access road behind the Golden Key Motel in Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. It was quiet that afternoon until one of them stopped and looked closer. There in the shallow water lay what appeared to be the body of a woman. When police arrived, they discovered something far worse. Not 1, but 4 women, each lying face down in the same ditch, each fully clothed but barefoot. Their bodies faced east, aligned in an eerie pattern that suggested purpose, not coincidence. The air was heavy, the scene almost ritualistic. The women had been there for days, some for weeks, slowly sinking into the cold water. Decomposition made identification difficult, but investigators knew one thing immediately. This was no accident. Someone had killed them. Someone had chosen this quiet strip of land to hide 4 lives, each discarded in the same way. In time, the names would come: Molly Dilts, Barbara Breidor, Tracy Roberts, and Kim Raffo. 4 women, ranging in age from 20 to 42, each with a past, a family, a story that led them to the streets of Atlantic City. Behind that small motel, police uncovered not only bodies, but a mystery that would remain unsolved for years. A killer's pattern, a town silence, and 4 women who had slipped through every safety net society promised to provide. What happened behind the Golden Key Motel was not just a crime, it was a tragedy that exposed how easily the forgotten can vanish. When police responded, the scene quickly grew more disturbing. As officers surveyed the area, they realized there wasn't just 1 body. There were 4. 4 women, all lying in the same position, face down, heads pointed east, fully clothed but barefoot. Some had been there for days, others weeks. The mushy terrain had slowed decomposition in some places, accelerated it in others. Each body told a different part of the same story, one of violence, neglect, and secrecy. The women's clothes were still on, but their shoes were missing. None of them carried identification. They weren't buried or hidden. They were just left there, lined up, as if whoever did this wanted them to be found or didn't care if they were. Autopsies would later show various stages of decay. Investigators determined that one woman, Molly Dilts, had likely been dead for up to 6 weeks. Barbara Breidor, the second to be killed, had been there for less time but long enough that the exact cause of death couldn't be confirmed. Tracy Roberts had been in the ditch for at least a week. Her death was ruled as asphyxia, but no specific method was confirmed. Kim Raffo was the most recent. She had been strangled, likely with a rope or cord. Each case had one thing in common, a haunting lack of answers. No signs of a struggle at the scene. No eyewitnesses. No known connection between the motel and the victims. It was as if they had simply vanished and reappeared in the ditch, discarded, one by one. The Golden Key Motel, once just another stop on a busy highway, had become the backdrop for one of South Jersey's most chilling mysteries. Investigators searched the surrounding area, combed the marshes, and followed every lead. But for all the time spent, the questions remained. Why were the women barefoot? Why were they all found in the same position? And who had brought them there? The crime scene didn't just uncover bodies, it revealed patterns. It raised theories. It created fear. But most of all, it exposed something deeper. 4 women who had lived on the edges of society were now the center of a crime no one could explain. And with no clear suspect, no murder weapon, and no confession, the ditch behind the motel remained a quiet witness to a crime that had already begun to fade from headlines, while the families were left holding the pieces of what was lost before her name appeared in police reports and news headlines. Barbara Breidor was someone entirely different. She was born on June 5, 1964, into a respected and well-off family in Huntingdon Valley, Pennsylvania. Her childhood was structured, rooted in faith and discipline. She attended Catholic school alongside her siblings, 2 sisters and a half-brother. Their father worked as a school counselor, and their mother, also named Barbara, ran a successful retail business selling Native American art and clothing. Barbara wasn't just another student in uniform. She was brilliant, sharp, fast-talking, and quick-witted. At home, her family loved to watch Jeopardy. But it wasn't just a game to Barbara. Her sisters would sit in amazement as she rattled off answers before the contestants even had time to press their buzzers. They believed without a doubt that she could win the whole thing if she ever got the chance. Her intelligence didn't go unnoticed. Barbara had a natural charm, a big smile, and a way of making people feel at ease. She wasn't just the smart kid. She was popular, funny, and full of life. For those who knew her, the idea that she would someday be found in a ditch behind a motel seemed unthinkable. After high school, Barbara attended Penn State University. She stayed for 2 years, exploring her independence and trying to find her path. Eventually, she returned home and started working for her mother at the Santa Fe Trading Company. The small chain had become profitable, and Barbara took pride in helping run it. For a time, life was steady. Her future still looked bright. Then came adulthood. Barbara's father had passed away in the early 1980s from aortic valve disease, and in 2000, her half-brother also died. Those years were heavy with loss, but Barbara tried to move forward. She took a job as a cocktail waitress at the Copacabana, a casino hotel on the Atlantic City boardwalk. It was there that she met a man named Stanley Frizzle, known as Steve. That meeting would mark a turning point. What started as a romance became something more destructive. Steve struggled with addiction, and when his doctors stopped prescribing pain medication, both he and Barbara began using heroin. Barbara's descent into addiction didn't happen overnight. It began in 1998, when she took one of Steve's pain pills to relieve menstrual cramps. What felt like a simple choice in a moment of discomfort slowly unraveled her entire life. Her intelligence, her warmth, her drive, they all began to fade under the weight of substance abuse. The family that once saw her as a rising star now watched her disappear into a world they couldn't understand. In 2001, she and Steve made a heartbreaking decision. They sent their 4-year-old daughter to live with Barbara's sister in Florida. Less than a year later, Barbara was working the streets of Atlantic City. Still, her family never stopped believing she could turn things around. They held on to the memories of the girl who could recite trivia from memory, who made everyone laugh, who lit up the room. That version of Barbara was still there, buried beneath the addiction, the struggle, the loss. She wasn't just another statistic. She was someone who had a real shot at a good life. And that's what makes her story so painful. Because Barbara Breidor didn't simply vanish, she was slowly pulled under. Until one day she never came back. Barbara Breidor's fall didn't come suddenly. It began quietly, almost innocently, with a single pill. In 1998, she took one of her boyfriend's prescribed pain pills to ease her menstrual cramps. That boyfriend, Steve Frizzell, already struggled with addiction. When his doctors stopped renewing his prescription, the two turned to heroin. What started as a way to escape pain quickly became a trap that neither of them could climb out of. Her family watched in disbelief as Barbara, once the confident and driven young woman from a prestigious Pennsylvania family, began to change. The sharp humor that once filled her home faded into distant phone calls and unpredictable disappearances. The woman who could have outsmarted anyone on Jeopardy was now fighting an opponent she couldn't beat: addiction. By 2001, Barbara and Steve were completely consumed by their dependency. They were no longer the couple who had big dreams. They were surviving from one high to the next. That same year, they made a decision that would break Barbara's heart forever. Their daughter, just 4 years old, was sent to live with Barbara's sister in Florida. Her sister, Valerie, took her in to give her the stable home Barbara could no longer provide. It was an act of love, but it left a hole in Barbara that would never heal. Not long after, Barbara's life spiraled further. Her mother sold the family business and moved to Florida after the death of Barbara's half-brother in 2000. With her support system gone and her addiction deepening, Barbara's world became smaller and darker. She stayed behind in New Jersey, trying to find footing but falling deeper into dependency. By 2002, Steve was arrested for burglary and drug possession. He served a year-long sentence at Southern State Correctional Facility. During that time, word reached him that Barbara's addiction had worsened. She had turned to crack cocaine and was working as a prostitute in Atlantic City. What began as desperation for money had become a dangerous lifestyle that put her at constant risk. Her arrests soon followed. Twice she was caught soliciting an undercover officer. Each time she served short jail terms, 30 days here, a few weeks there. Every time she got out, she promised to do better. But the streets of Atlantic City were unforgiving, and Barbara had no one left nearby to anchor her back to stability. Her family continued to hope for her recovery, but contact grew less frequent. The woman who once had endless potential was now struggling to find food, shelter, and safety. Addiction had taken everything from her: her job, her family, her dignity, and finally, her sense of self. By the time Steve was released from prison, Barbara was no longer the person he once knew. She was surviving one day at a time, trapped in the same streets that would one day lead to her death. Barbara Breidor had once been the smartest girl in the room. But addiction doesn't care how smart you are. It only knows how to destroy. In the final years of her life, Barbara Breidor was caught in the grip of addiction, but still searching for something like stability. After years on the streets and time in jail, she ended up living with a friend named Lori and Lori's father, Richard Adams, in a duplex on North Lafayette Avenue in Ventnor, New Jersey. It wasn't a perfect setup, but it gave her a roof over her head and people who didn't judge her. Barbara helped out around the house, doing chores in exchange for free room and board. For a woman who had once lost everything, this simple arrangement offered a small sense of structure. By then, the dreams of a career, a home, or reuniting with her daughter seemed distant. The life she had once imagined was far behind her, replaced with day-to-day survival. Still, there were moments when the old Barbara surfaced, a glimpse of the wit, the intelligence, the warmth that her sisters remembered. But addiction leaves little room for second chances. The streets of Atlantic City weren't just unforgiving, they were dangerous. Women like Barbara, trapped between homelessness, drug use, and sex work, were easy targets. Vulnerable, isolated, and often invisible to society. The last time anyone saw Barbara alive was on October 17, 2006. She was seen leaving the North Lafayette duplex. No one knows where she went or who she met. After that, she vanished. For over a month, there were no updates, no sightings, no phone calls. Her family hoped she would resurface, maybe arrested again or checked into rehab. But she never came back. Then on November 20th, her body was discovered in the ditch behind the Golden Key Motel. It was a tragic end, but not a sudden one. Barbara had been dying slowly for years, from addiction, from loss, from the crushing weight of circumstances she could never fully escape. For those who loved her, it wasn't just the fact that she died, it was the way she died. Alone, discarded, and unidentified for days. A woman once destined for greatness, found face down in the mud behind a motel. Barbara Breidor didn't deserve that ending. But like so many others, her pain went unnoticed until it was too late. As investigators examined the bodies of the 4 women found behind the Golden Key Motel, toxicology reports uncovered disturbing similarities. Kim Raffo and Tracy Roberts had high levels of cocaine in their systems. Molly Dilts had alcohol in hers, and Barbara Breidor had a potentially lethal amount of heroin. Each woman had some kind of substance in her body when she died, enough to impair, sedate, or kill. This raised a chilling possibility. What if the killer had drugged them before ending their lives? The women were all found face down, barefoot, fully clothed, and positioned in the same direction. There were no signs of struggle at the scene. For many investigators, this suggested they may have been unconscious or heavily impaired when they were killed. The drugs in their systems could have been willingly taken, but they could also have been used to control or disable them. The cause of death for Barbara and Molly couldn't be determined due to decomposition. Tracy's death was ruled asphyxia, but the exact method remained unknown. Kim was the only one clearly murdered by strangulation. The lack of consistency in how they died made the case harder to connect. But the drug use, the positioning, and the timeline pointed to a pattern. All 4 women had been struggling. They had experienced trauma, divorce, loss, addiction. They had turned to sex work to survive. They were vulnerable. To the killer, that may have made them easy targets, but these women weren't just statistics or headlines. They were mothers, daughters, sisters. They had lived through heartbreak, fought through addiction, and clung to survival in a world that often looked the other way. Now they were gone. And the trail leading to their killer was growing colder by the day. As detectives searched for leads, one name kept circling back: Terry Olson. He was staying at the Golden Key Motel during the period when the murders were believed to have happened. Olson himself contacted investigators with something strange. He claimed to have found a pair of construction boots on the motel's roof. It was an odd detail, unexpected, unprompted, and unexplained. Olson's ex-girlfriend had also reported him, possibly out of spite after he kicked her out of the room. Investigators took her claims seriously. Olson was questioned, gave hair and DNA samples, and even volunteered for a polygraph test. He cooperated fully, but in the end nothing linked him to the crimes. No DNA match, no physical evidence, no confession. He was never arrested or charged. Years later, attention turned to a different name, Rex Heuermann, the suspected Long Island serial killer. Heuermann's profile sent shockwaves through the public. A seemingly normal man accused of murdering multiple women, all sex workers, and hiding their bodies in isolated areas. It sounded familiar, too familiar. People began to ask, could Heuermann be the one who left those women behind the Golden Key Motel? Investigators met with Long Island authorities. They examined timelines, methods, victimology. But the pieces didn't fit. The Atlantic City killings occurred in 2006. Hoyerman's confirmed crimes took place years later. The geographic and forensic links were weak. In the end, police said plainly, there was no known connection. With Hoyerman ruled out and no new suspects, the investigation stalled. Leads ran dry. The case faded from headlines. Despite multiple women found in the same location, despite similarities in the way they were positioned, there was never a breakthrough. No suspect brought to trial. No answers given to the families. What remains is a haunting silence. A ditch behind a motel, a community that never got closure, and a killer still out there. When the media covered the case, the headlines were predictable. Prostitutes found dead behind motel. Atlantic City's drug crisis turns deadly. The focus wasn't on who these women were, but what they had become. They were reduced to their addictions, their arrests, their labels, but that wasn't the whole story. Barbara Breidor was once a Penn State student. Molly Dilts didn't have a criminal record at all. Kim Raffo was a mother. Tracy Roberts had people who loved her. They weren't just streetwalkers or statistics. They were human beings, deeply flawed, deeply hurt, and deeply forgotten by a system that failed to protect them. Each of these women left behind a family. A child, a sister, a parent waiting for the phone to ring, for answers that never came, for justice that never arrived. The grief they carry is compounded by silence. Every year that passes without closure only deepens the wound. The case is still open, but for many it feels frozen in time. The public moved on. The news cycle did too. But for the people who loved Barbara, Kim, Tracy, and Molly, the pain never left. Because behind every unsolved case is a trail of lives forever altered. And the question that lingers in the air like fog over that ditch, how could someone do this and never be caught? Barbara Breidor was a daughter, a sister, a mother. She was intelligent, vibrant, and full of promise. Her story should have been about success, not survival. But addiction doesn't care about potential. Here it strips away opportunity, connection, and hope. Still, her death wasn't just the result of her addiction, it was the result of a broken system. One that didn't catch her when she started to fall. One that punishes the vulnerable and protects the silent. A system that let a killer vanish into thin air. We like to believe that if someone goes missing, the world will notice. That if bodies are found, justice will follow. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes people disappear in plain sight. Sometimes society looks the other way. Barbara wasn't perfect, none of them were. But they mattered, and they deserved to be seen, to be remembered, and to be protected. The ditch behind the Golden Key Motel wasn't just the site of a crime, it became a symbol of the women we ignore, the stories we forget, and the justice that never comes. This isn't just about who took their lives, it's about how we allowed them to be taken. Until someone answers for what happened, the case will remain open, not just in court records, but in the hearts of those who still remember 4 women who were more than what the world let them become.